Hello, readers by eyes and by ears. This is Mari Chen, and welcome back to my channel. Whether you are on Patreon or on YouTube, it is so good to be back with you all again, reading Remnants of Filth, Volume 1, also known as Yooeh by Rou Bao or Meat Bun. So today is going to be a shorter day. We are only reading chapters 30 through 31, and that is because, at least for my Patreoners, we are going to be doing a live session. So, I am looking forward to it, and I hope you all enjoy these chapters. Let's just go ahead and get into them, shall we? Chapter 30, Ghostbusters. Goo Mahng instantly froze. Yooeh Chuhn-ching started laughing. It really worked. A fourth uncle is the best. The hell do you mean? Murong Lian asked impatiently. Now he can't move. Are you going to leave him here? Or are you going to pick him up and carry him inside? It's fine. We can leave him here, Yooeh Chuhn-ching said. This immobility talisman is enchanted with a heavenly thunder shield. It would take someone a long time to break it, no matter how strong they are. No one can do anything to him. We can't leave him out here alone, Morsi said. The heavenly thunder spell is super strong. Other people can't. Nothing is infallible, said Morsi. Do you have any other magical devices? Anything that can move him along? Yooeh Chuhn-ching thought for a moment, then exclaimed, Oh, I do! Wait a minute. He dug around in his Chenqing pouch once more. After looking for a bit, he took out a small bamboo figurine. Isn't that one of those cheap trinkets that children on the street spar with? Murong Lian said. It's the same concept, but this one is enchanted. Yooeh Chuhn-ching placed the palm-sized bamboo figurine on the ground and rattled off a series of incantations. Absolutely nothing happened. I might have recited it wrong. Let me try again. Murong dage, Shizun, don't worry. Yooeh Chuhn-ching anxiously repeated the incantations in a few more variations. Just as Murong Lian was about to irascibly cut this exercise short, golden light flashed, and the bamboo figurine sprang up from the ground. The palm-sized puppet toy had become a bamboo warrior the size of a grown man. Yooeh Chuhn-ching beamed. There we go! He hefted the immobile Goo Mahng, then stared wide-eyed at Morsi and Murong Lian. Lend me a hand? Murong Lian gave him a fake smile. I won't touch him. Too dirty. Morsi had been standing to the side with his arms crossed, but now he stepped forward and said expressionlessly, What do you need? We gotta attach his limbs to the bamboo warriors. There are fastening mechanisms on the warrior. You see? Morsi did as instructed. Goo Mahng was restrained by the immobility talisman and rendered mute and motionless, but he knew well what was happening around him. He glared at the two people moving his arms and legs, his eyes flashing back and forth between Morsi and Yooeh Chuhn-ching. The pair tied Goo Mahng to the bamboo warrior. To finish it off, Yooeh Chuhn-ching tied the rope around the warrior's torso and wound it several times around Goo Mahng's waist. Then he whistled and said, All right, let's try taking a few steps. The bamboo warrior began walking, clack, 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 arms and legs moving in sync. Since Goo Mahng was fixed to it, he was also brought clack, clack, clacking along. This magical device was both wholly marvelous and terribly interesting. Anyone else would have praised Yooeh Chuhn-ching to the skies, but the two people presently by his side were the deathly stuffy Shizun and the deathly picky Shizun. Shizun only watched with his arms crossed, saying nothing. Shizun snorted. Just one of Yooeh Manor's party tricks. He took 2 drags of ephemera, exhaled, and pointed the pipe at Goo Mahng. What can it do other than walk? Fight! It can perform all the usual dodging maneuvers. Yooeh Chuhn-ching took no offense, still pleased with himself. It can even dance! Murong Lian bit his pipe, his eyes half-lidded as he mulled this over. Then why not make him dance? Yooeh Chuhn-ching whistled again. In response, the bamboo warrior began lurching to the left, then to the right, forcing Goo Mahng to sway along, this way and that. Even though the movement was silly and cute, those lupine blue eyes glared daggers at them. If Goo Mahng could have moved, he definitely would have bitten them to death and torn every one of them apart. It can even do the Sogdian whirl. All you need is enough. Morsi cut him off. Let's go. After a pause, he added, order the bamboo warrior to follow at the back. Really quick footnote, the Sogdian whirl is a popular dance during the Tang Dynasty named for its originators, the Sogdians, an ancient Iranian civilization that traded extensively with the Tang Empire. Returning to the reading. The cave where the phantom was hiding was dim and awfully deep. There were multiple branching points inside the great mountain cavern, which split off into many smaller caverns. The three of them, plus Goo Mahng, tied to the bamboo warrior, so the four of them slowly walked inside. The empty cave echoed with the clicking of Morsi's steel-toed military boots, the padding of Yooeh Chuhn-ching's footsteps, and the creaking of the bamboo warrior's joints. Only Lian walked without a sound. His gait was light and graceful, and his shoes were made of the highest quality heavenly silk. His steps were completely silent. Lian was quite pleased with himself. Forget the rapist. Even a toddler would realize we're coming with the noise you two are making. I'll walk more softly, said Yooeh Chuhn-ching, obedient as ever. Morsi, on the other hand, retorted frostily. Do you think he doesn't know we've entered the cave? There are no other exits, and this is his territory. He's obviously hiding and replenishing his spiritual energy as he waits for us to arrive. Then I'll walk more loudly, said Yooeh Chuhn-ching, easily swayed as ever. The bamboo warrior creaked in reply. Morsi was right. Those who cast Dream of Longing could only do so with great amounts of spiritual energy. The phantom was hiding in one of these caves to gather his strength. As they walked deeper into the bowels of the cavern, they discovered more and more signs that he had holed up within it. There were dried bloodstains on the central path, and here and there scraps of clothing dangled from protruding stalagmites. These had unmistakably been left by murdered cultivators and kidnapped maidens who had struggled as they were dragged inside. In the stone crevice, Yooeh Chuhn-ching even spied a brocade shoe. In a bid to stall for time, the rapist had cast a great many spells within the cave. However, the emperor had sent 3 particular individuals, Morsi, whose martial power was formidable and who possessed a commander's capabilities, Yooeh Chuhn-ching, who was born of an aristocratic line of artificers and who carried numerous unexpected magical trinkets at all times, and Lian, who excelled at illusion techniques and was well versed in healing spells. Thus, the rapist's mysterious traps posed no threat. The trio swiftly arrived at a long karst bridge. It should be up ahead. Morsi glanced toward the end of the limestone bridge. There seemed to be an expansive cave on the other end, which shone faintly with the indistinct jade-green light of magic. This bridge was a natural formation of a karst cave. It did span from one side to the other, but it was entirely comprised of spirit stones that protruded from the depths of the underground lake below. The stones varied in size and distance, and were perilously slippery withal. Morsi glanced beneath the bridge. The soaring stone pillars were at least 100 yards tall, with a rushing river beneath. A short span like this was no issue for this group. It was only... He turned to Yooeh Chuhn-ching. Is the bamboo warrior skilled at Qinggong? Yooeh Chuhn-ching shook his head. Morsi frowned and gazed at Goo Mahng, who was still tied to the bamboo warrior, looking murderous. But I think I can order it to jump like a jiangshi. It can probably hop across the gaps between the pillars. Really quick footnotes. Qinggong literally means lightness technique. It is a martial arts skill of moving swiftly and lightly through the air. And then jiangshi is to reanimate corpses of dead humans. Their limbs are locked in place due to rigor mortis, meaning they can only move directly forward, hopping with their arms outstretched in front of them. Returning to the reading. Here was a major point of contention during the 2 years Yooeh Chuhn-ching and Shee had been stationed together. Deputy General Yooeh Chuhn-ching liked to use words such as maybe, I think, and probably, while Commander Shee generally only accepted terms such as certainly, definitely, and absolutely. Consequently, Shee glanced at Yooeh Chuhn-ching and did not authorize the use of jump like a jiangshi. He only said, all of you follow on your own. Then, with one hand, he grabbed Goo Mahng by the lapels and rose into the air, his robes billowing. Shee was extremely strong, and his Qinggong foundation was outstanding as well. Before the echoes of his instructions had died, he had already swept far into the distance, fluttering like a black kite. Yooeh Chuhn-ching was stupefied. Wow, so skilled. Lian scoffed. What's so impressive about that? In this way, the 4 of them crossed the 100-yard-long karst bridge. When they looked back the way they came, all they could see was a distant shadow. Shee set the bamboo warrior on the ground without a glance at Goo Mahng. Let's go, he said to the others. As expected, this was the deepest cave in the entire system, filled with stalactites and stalagmites. The jade-green light of magic they'd seen was coming from a cluster of rock formations in the center of the cavern. Just as they were about to enter, Yooeh Chuhn-ching, who was always peering around, shouted in alarm, Look! There are words over there! A fireball lit up in Shee's palm. With a wave of his hand, the flame flitted up to hover above the lofty cave wall at which Yooeh Chuhn-ching pointed. Illuminated by firelight were several rows of crooked handwriting, scrawled on the cave wall in muddy red ink that looked like blood. The mountain bride, all night she cried. First she hates her helpless fate. Second hates her ill-starred face. Third, their parting does she hate, a lost love left too late. Garbled in scarlet, crowned in gold, once she laughs, face warped by hate. Twice she laughs, blood streaks her face. Thrice she laughs, and with that last, forever seals your fate. Yooeh Chuhn-ching mumbled each word aloud. Just as he finished reading and opened his mouth to call to the others, he heard a soft giggle from behind him. He whipped around. Without the slightest warning, the tip of his nose bumped into a ghastly pale face. Ah! Yooeh Chuhn-ching screamed, leaping high into the air and scrabbling forward. His vision cleared. At some point, a dozen female corpses garbed in red robes and crowned in gold had slunk out of the shadows between the stalagmites. He'd been standing in front of one of them, so he'd come face to face with it as soon as he turned. General Mo, help! Ah! Yooeh Chuhn-ching was a cultivator, but he developed an abnormal fear of ghosts after listening to too many horror stories. He shrieked miserably on and on, trying to move his legs and run away. But because he was terrified, he fell to the ground with a crash. With his bugged-out eyes and sunken cheeks, he resembled nothing quite so much as a screaming gopher. The corpse gazed at him, equally motionless. Robes embroidered with golden phoenixes and butterflies fluttered in the chill wind of the cave. Yooeh Chuhn-ching swallowed several times. A realization dawned upon his numbed mind. Aren't you Cui from the tea house? He cried. Miss Cui was expressionless. The dead woman's face possessed a dull, stiff tranquility. After a moment, she giggled again. 2 lines of bloody tears slid down from her staring eyes. Once she laughs, face warped by hate. Twice she laughs, blood streaks her face. Thrice she laughs, and with that last, forever seals your fate. Remembering the words on the stone wall, Yooeh Chuhn-ching's head rang. He shouted at Shee, who was already fighting the other corpses. Shizun, hurry up! Don't let her laugh a 3rd time, or she'll seal my fate! The response he received was Lian's pipe rapping against his head. As it turned out, he was standing close by. Incensed by Yooeh Chuhn-ching's ear-splitting scream, he remorselessly rapped him many more times and left a pipeful of ash on the boy's head. You blithering idiot! Don't you know how to fight on your own? He snarled. It's just a jiangshi. But I'm afraid of ghosts. Still wailing, Chuhn-ching wrapped his arms around Murong Lian's thigh without warning. Murong Lian had no words. At that moment, Miss Tsui drew back her scarlet lips and began her third giggle. He, my ass! The corpse had no chance to finish her last giggle because Murong Lian rudely shoved his pipe in her mouth. He looked down at Chuhn-ching clinging tight to his pant leg. Why are you hugging me? Hurry up and let go. Chapter 31. Don't touch him. Chuhn-ching's soul was on the verge of dissolving. Only after Murong Lian gave him a few more kicks did he pathetically release him. It was exactly like the tales of Li Qingqian's exorcisms at Maiden's Lament Mountain. A crowd of women in dark red robes and golden brocade shoes materialized endlessly out of shadows, wearing miserable smiles and weeping tears of blood. More and more corpses filled the cave, emerging from the darkness, from behind the stalagmites, and even rising from the water's surface. Shee and Murong Lian each dealt with their respective sides. As Chuhn-ching watched them draw farther and farther away from him, he found himself wanting to cry. Shihejun, Murong Dage, what should I do? He asked shakily. No new corpses were appearing near him, but he was surrounded by jagged and shadowy terrain. What if there were more evil, bloody eyes staring at him from the darkness? Such is the nature of reality. What you least desire is most likely to occur. The dreaded hypothetical almost always comes true. Accordingly, just as this terrifying thought occurred to Chuhn-ching, he felt hairs arise on the back of his neck. He slowly turned and saw, hidden behind the stone outcropping, half of the deathly pale face of two bloody tear tracks. The woman was leaning against the stone and staring right at him. Chuhn-ching shuddered. He felt like his thrumming head had exploded. In times of great terror, people often called for the one they trust most. The words that tumbled from his quivering lips were, Fourth uncle! Chuhn-ching's fourth uncle wasn't here. Of course he didn't save him. Only after Chuhn-ching had sat quaking for some time did he remember this fact. Even if he kept shouting, Fourth uncle, save me! His only companions in this cavern were the heartless Murong Lian and Shee. He was free to choose either one. He looked left and right and happened to see Shee's long leg kick out from the left, knocking over a row of corpses. Chuhn-ching felt like a holy deity had descended to the earth and gladly made to rush to his side. But at that moment, the woman hiding behind the stone grinned much too widely, baring eerily white teeth. Once she laughs, face warped by hate. Twice she laughs, blood streaks her face. As she slowly crawled out from the depths of the stone, she let out a third mournful laugh. Thrice she laughs and forever seals your fate. Seconds after the third laugh, the corpse's resentment erupted. Her eyes rolled, becoming bloodshot and flashing scarlet, and her fingernails shot out into long claws. She wailed at the sky and rushed Chuhn-ching. Ah! Chuhn-ching hadn't the least idea how to fight back. Female ghosts wearing red robes and brocade shoes terrified him more than anything. As she pounced, all he could do was shriek miserably, close to tears, Fourth uncle! Suddenly there was a thunderous crash. A bolt of lightning struck right in front of Chuhn-ching, and a series of golden red beams exploded from the ground and burst into raging flames. A silhouette leapt into the air and descended from the skies. Amid the hissing firelight, it landed firmly in front of Chuhn-ching. The figure turned. Lit by the crackling flame, his profile was dazzlingly heroic, his pupils filled with icy blue light. Goo Mahng? Chuhn-ching was stunned. Only after a beat did he realize that no, it wasn't Goo Mahng. It was the bamboo warrior. His uncle's bamboo warrior was here to save him. Goo Mahng was merely tied to its bamboo limbs, immobilized. Yooeh Cheng's thoughts were interrupted by the bamboo warrior waving its hand to unsheath a blade of dark steel from its weapon compartment. Then, fierce as lightning, it charged the leering corpse. Construct and corpse fought fiercely, becoming a blur of furious blows. Yooeh Cheng had finally recovered enough to move. He hastily gathered all his energy to shout, "Go, fourth uncle!" Upon second thought, that didn't feel right, so he tried, "Go, bamboo warrior!" Soon afterward, he saw the corpse's filthy blood spray Goo Mahng's face. Goo Mahng's expression was ferocious, as if he, too, would have killed that female corpse, if only he weren't bound. Yooeh Cheng shouted, Go Goo Mahng!" The bamboo warrior was extraordinarily strong. After the first full-force exchange of blows, it swiftly swept backward. Blade flashing, it soared into the air. A swirling gale rushed past as it threw itself at the corpse, filthy blood spraying out. The corpse stiffened once more before falling, bisected to the ground. "Ugh, how gross!" muttered Yooeh Cheng. Corpse defeated, the bamboo warrior hefted its bloody blade as if still unsatisfied and stomped toward Yooeh Cheng. With a whoosh, the tip came to rest at the hollow of Yooeh Cheng's throat. "Big brother, wait, no, fourth uncle, or Goo Mahng?" Yooeh Cheng tried a few different forms of address, but felt that none of them were quite right, so simply decided against addressing him. He carefully waved his hands. "You're pointing the blade in the wrong direction. I'm not a ghost. Don't stab me." Goo Mahng's blue eyes lowered to gaze down at him. The bamboo warrior swiveled its sword to the side. With the still dripping flat of the blade, it clumsily patted Yooeh Cheng's face as if to scold a junior. Right then, a strong wind gusted down from above, and red robes fluttered before their eyes. Yooeh Cheng jumped in fright. But before he even had the chance to speak, the bamboo warrior shoved him away. Yooeh Cheng fell to the ground with an undignified plop and avoided the strike. Goo Mahng, however, was still tied to the bamboo warrior. The ghost's claws raked across his face. Goo Mahng could neither move nor speak, but his expression made clear that he was enraged. Those eyes of a white wolf flashed with hatred as scarlet dripped from the wound on his cheek. The ghost whose sneak attack had succeeded was grinning hideously before them, as if overwhelmed with joy by her victory. But seconds later, she seemed to sense something, and lowered her head to stare at her blood-stained left hand in a daze. In the next instant, her features twisted into a mask of alarm and horror. She cried out, holding her hand and wailing unintelligibly, yet piteously, at Goo Mahng. She seemed to be begging Goo Mahng for something. Yooeh Cheng's astonishment hadn't yet sunk in before even a more shocking event occurred. When Goo Mahng remained unresponsive, the ghost fell to her knees with a thump. Reaching out with the sharp nails of her right hand, she snapped off her left. "Oh my God!" Yooeh Cheng didn't know whether he should be disgusted or bewildered. The pungent stench of rot and blood rushed up into his nose, nearly making him vomit. The corpse, however, was undeterred. She picked up her severed limb and offered it to Goo Mahng with a shaking hand, the very image of someone preemptively punishing themselves in a plea for leniency. All the while, soft sobs of issued from her mouth. Goo Mahng's blue eyes moved, fixing upon that bloody limb. Yooeh Cheng wasn't sure if it was a trick of light, but his eyes seemed to become paler. What's with this breeze?" Yooeh Cheng was stunned. "Is it getting windy?" The wind rippled outward from beneath the bamboo warrior's feet, beneath Goo Mahng's feet. Despite the malice in Goo Mahng's expression, his killing intent wasn't especially potent, so the wind wasn't terribly strong either. Nevertheless, as soon as it blew past them, the corpses were struck dumb. At length, they began screaming and shaking as they knelt unsteadily on the ground with their heads lowered, unmoving. In the blink of an eye, all the corpses had fallen to their knees, facing Goo Mahng. Yooeh Cheng hadn't yet realized what was happening, but Murong Lian's eyes were wide. The color drained from Morsi's complexion, but he was looking not at the corpses, but at Goo Mahn's face. Swarming corpses and the like had an extremely strong hierarchical instinct. The only things that could scare them were, by and large, other corpses, vengeful ghosts, or resentful spirits of greater power. Somehow, these women who had died tragic deaths were all submitting to Goo Mahng, all wailing in audible pleas for mercy. Why was that so? Was it merely because Goo Mahng harbored such high levels of malevolent chi in his body? Goo Mahng seemed incredibly irritated, his blue eyes darting to and fro. Though he made no sound, the direction of the wind changed. The ghosts emitted ululating shrieks, black chi rising from each of their bodies to coalesce over Goo Mahn's heart. He was absorbing their malevolent chi. As Goo Mahng took in more and more of the chi, the female corpses convulsed like dying fish, quickly crumbling. With the resentment pulled from their bodies, they became ordinary corpses. Some, who had died long ago, rotted and withered upon the loss of their resentment, turning into blackened, putrid piles of bones. Some, who had been murdered recently, retained visible hints of the beauty they had possessed in life. Yooeh endured his disgust to peek at the corpse nearest him. It seemed to be the woman named Lian, who had gone missing from the first brothel. When Lian saw what was happening, he strode forward and grabbed Goo Mahng by the neck, gnashing his teeth. "I knew it! You liar! You were colluding with that man who escaped from Lian. What are you planning?" But after swallowing the malevolent chi from all the corpses, Goo Mahng was like a wild beast that had eaten its fill. His head slumped, and he closed his eyes and fell asleep on the bamboo warrior, entirely insensible to Lian and his wrath. "You—" Lian grew enraged, but as he was about to tighten his grip, a hand stopped him. He whirled to see Morsi's face in the shadows of the dim cave. Morsi grabbed Lian's wrist, not saying a word as he slowly moved it down. Morsi looked quite courteous and said nothing inappropriate. Only Lian knew the strength he was exerting, practically enough to shatter bones through flesh. "What are you doing?" Lian asked darkly. "Let go of him." Lian's nose wrinkled in rage. "He's an accomplice!" "He isn't," Morsi said. "Isn't? How isn't he? Didn't you see how a drop of his blood made that corpse snap off her own arm? Didn't you see how a single glance from him made them all kneel? Didn't you see how he took all their corpse energy for himself without even moving an inch?" "If he really knew how to control them," Morsi angrily retorted, "and was working with that man from Liao, would you still be standing here, safe and sound?" This rendered Lian instantly mute. He still wanted to speak, but he couldn't get a single word out, and his pale face slowly reddened. After a pause, he smiled mirthlessly. "Very well. You're the reasonable one. You're defending him. I think you've wholly forgotten what he's done, how cunning he is, how skilled he is at... Lian spat his last word. "Lying." "His character," Morsi said, "is nothing you need to remind me of." "No need to remind you of?" Lian burst out laughing. By the end, the expression on his face was distorted. "Even if I reminded you, you wouldn't listen. And you still dare to say you're not harboring any personal motives? What a good Shizun you are! Go ahead and keep protecting him. Then, I see you've forgotten how your father died." The color drained at once from Morsi's pale and elegant face as he glared daggers at Lian. But Lian was thrilled. No one dared mention this sore spot of Morsi's, the reason behind his father's death, except for Lian, the only one who could. He was fully aware that though Morsi's temper was usually irritable, at critical junctures he was more clear-headed than anyone. So Lian snickered, his predatory peach blossom eyes flicking to Goo Mahng before landing back on Morsi's handsome face. He lifted his chin and crooned, "Shizun is so righteous, so deeply devoted to brotherhood. May you swiftly follow in your esteemed father's footsteps." Phew. Morsi's rage seemed to flare, but just as Lian expected, he wasn't the sort of person who lost sight of his priorities because he was upset. He stared into Murong Lian's eyes for a long moment before pushing him away. With both boots and weapon clanging, he strode deeper into the cave with scarcely a backward glance. Murong Daga, you... Chuhn-ching sighed. He was practically speechless after watching this scene unfold. He had no wish to speak to Murong Lian any further, and scampered after Morsi's retreating back with the bamboo warrior tottering loudly behind him. Shizun, wait for me! It's dangerous to go alone! The sound of their retreating footsteps echoed within the cave. Murong Lian remained standing in place, tilting his head back to stare into the endless dark of the cavern before closing his eyes. A cruel and mocking sneer appeared at the corners of his mouth. Then, slowly, he followed after the others. When they arrived at an area glowing with green light, they came to a stop. This was the last large cave within the system, hidden behind an expanse of stone formations. The green light flickered bright, then dim. It turned out to be a protective barrier placed at the entrance of a cave. Morsi only needed one glance to identify it. It's the God-repelling array. The upright countries of the 9 provinces cultivated the righteous immortal path, so they usually named spells things like demon-repelling, ghost-repelling, or malevolence-repelling. Any protective formation described as God-repelling was almost certain to be from the Liao kingdom. Is it hard to break? No, Morsi said, but it takes time. The release incantation for the God-repelling array was extremely long and complicated. Morsi lifted his vambraced left hand and closed his eyes, soundlessly reciting the words. Only after a good stretch did the green light gradually dim under his hand as the array slowly retreated. As the glow dimmed to nothing, soft laughter came from within the cave. The phantom's voice resounded from the deepest recess. You broke through my final defense. Pausing, he continued in an eerie tone. Then, honored Shenzhen, welcome in. All right, you guys, so there we have it. That is the reading of chapters 30 through 31, and honestly, I don't really have anything to say about it. Because it was not really a lot of information, but yeah, so we just have this scene where they're going into the cave to find this mystery murder guy is still what I'm calling him, since we don't have an official name or face to him quite yet. But it's interesting to see this little trinket that Yooeh Chenqing brought out, the bamboo warrior to keep Goo Mahng bound but able to be mobile. That's super cool, and I'm looking forward, I guess, since it appears that he usually has fun little trinkets, I'm looking forward to see what more trinkets he may have and what they can do, because clearly battling ghosts, at least, isn't his strong suit. He kind of failed in this arena, but I would like to see him successful in an area. So let's hopefully get to that. Now we've come to a new moment of seeing Goo Mahng having absorbed the malevolent chi of these resentful ghosts, thereby killing them, and I'm very interested to see why that is the case, because as it said, based on their hierarchical system, they only are scared by other corpses, vengeful ghosts, or resentful spirits with greater power. And to our knowledge, he's none of those things. So we need to see, like, okay, what's going on? And the last thing I'll just say is Lian is a bastard, because for him to say what he said, it's just like, come on, my guy. You did not have to stoop so low. I get that you really don't like Morsi, and you really don't like Goo Mahng, and you really don't like Morsi defending Goo Mahng in any kind of way. But that was a low blow that was absolutely not necessary. What Morsi said made perfect sense as far as Goo Mahng absorbing the malevolent chi and not meaning any harm by it or having been part of the scheme. It seemed like something that just involuntarily happened. He's such a freaking bastard. Anyway, I can't wait to see what happens in the final chapters with you all. It's going to be very interesting. I think it's about 30 pages for us to read together. Let me see. Just about, 32 pages. So that's going to be fun. We're reading it live. Yay! Anyway, that's all I have to say. If you have any comments, feel free to share them. And I look forward to seeing you guys. Yeah. 我爱你们.